Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following all the news and rumors on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. I'm Daemon Hatfield, and as always, I am joined by Ryan McCaffrey, host of IGN's Xbox podcast, Podcast Unlocked.
Welcome back, Daemon.
Thank you. Good to be back. And Jonathon Dornbush, host of IGN's PlayStation podcast, Podcast Beyond.
Beyond. Hey, Daemon. Good to see you.
And this week, we're focusing on upcoming next-gen sci-fi RPGs, of which there are several very exciting games on the horizon. So let's just get right into it. Let's start actually with the one that is the only one on this list that actually has a release date. Hopefully we'll make it out by the end of this year. That is Starfield. Long time in development, but now has a release date of November 11th, 2022. Ryan, this is a big Xbox exclusive. First new IP from Bethesda in quite a long time. And they've been sort of like doling out little sort of like dev diary videos and concept art pretty regularly. How is Starfield shaping up for you these days?
Well, there's still a lot of mystery behind it. And number one, I do want to go on record. I've said this to Todd Howard directly. I am not sure I believe him when he says November 11th, only because they announced that last year. And it's like we've seen so many game delays because making games is difficult. Making them in a work from home pandemic situation is even more difficult. And so many delays. So I hope it comes out November 11th. Actually, I should say, I just hope it comes out when it's polished and ready, whether that's November 11th or not. But, you know, I'm sure they know what they're doing. And hopefully it's just that the game's basically already done as we're talking now. And they're just polishing the heck out of it until November. But yeah, this is going to be a big deal. I feel like the hype has not sort of crested yet. We're not even close. You know, you mentioned these dev diaries that they've been putting out, which have been really interesting to watch. You know, on the last one, they talked about taking some elements of like NPC routine behavior from, taking inspiration from Oblivion, which is my favorite Elder Scrolls game. So they've been kind of just dropping these little hints and nuggets in these dev diaries, but we still haven't actually seen this game in a continuous gameplay setting. Like, what exactly are you doing? I mean, is it more Mass Effect-y, or is it really just closer to Skyrim in space? And, both of those would have their pros and cons, or is it something completely new? But I mean, like you said, Daemon, this is the first game from Todd Howard's Bethesda Game Studios team. So I'm really excited by this. I want to see what that team comes up with and it's a next-gen Xbox exclusive. And this should it release this year, it's almost certainly going to be the biggest thing on Xbox in 2022.
Yeah, that's a big question in my mind is just, how big can Starfield get? Skyrim is a huge game. It's in the top 20 best-selling video games of all time. It has huge mass market appeal, far beyond the reaches of just IGN's like core gamer demographic. It's a very, very popular, well-known game. Can Starfield come even close to that level of success? What do you think, Ryan?
Not with the first one. No, certainly not. I think they know that. But here's the thing, like, this to me seems like Bethesda showing a lot of respect to Todd Howard, who's been there for 25 years now, and the team, and that team's been together for a long time as well. I talked to Todd about that, and they've made a lot of great games together. And I think it's not unlike Fallout in that before Fallout came along, Todd Howard and that team only made Elder Scrolls games, and that's all they did. And Todd literally asked when the Fallout rights became available, he told management, I would like this. If you can get this, I want it. And they went and got it for him. And they did that knowing that it would mean that Elder Scrolls was going to be put on hold for a little while they started making a Fallout game. And, it's showing respect for a very respected game developer and his team. And hey, they want to do something new. Let's see if, you can build something new. And knowing that it's not going to get to Fallout or Elder Scrolls levels right away, but you see the long game, and maybe if it's great, it could get there in another entry or two, and then you have 3 cash cows instead of 2. So yeah, it's part respect for your team and your creators, and part playing the long game of gaming as a business.
Jonathon, Starfield being an Xbox exclusive, how are you feeling about it these days? Is it something that you wish you could play on your PlayStation 5?
I mean, I think there are probably a lot of people that do. I've actually never played a Bethesda RPG, so Starfield will probably be the one I jump into first. I have total respect for them. I heard your wow. I think for me, it's I get paralyzed by the amount of choice in those games. And so I've tried Skyrim, I've tried Fallout, I've tried Oblivion, and then I kind of just like lose my way after a little bit. I just have that happen sometimes. But, I do really love sci-fi stuff. So I do think Starfield is probably one that has piqued my interest a little bit more than those past ones. And I certainly think, there are probably a ton of PlayStation players that would hope to be able to play it. Certainly with it being available in Game Pass and the way that Xbox is going with games on console and PC and in the cloud, hopefully there will be easy ways and low cost ways for people to be able to pick it up if they don't own an Xbox console specifically. And that seems to be the trend. But, I certainly think it's probably one of the biggest games that you're just not going to be able to get on a PlayStation console this year. And it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. Not that there certainly haven't been, PlayStation exclusives this year that Xbox players can't. It's just how the way these things work now.
Well, not to worry, Jonathan. There is an upcoming sci-fi RPG that is going to be a console exclusive on PS5. Actually, maybe for this one, we should say science fantasy, because this is the Knights of the Old Republic remake. So far, it's a console launch exclusive on PS5, although I would not be surprised if it would eventually come to Xbox sometime down the line. I actually played the original KOTOR on the original Xbox, so it would seem a little strange to not have that eventually land on Xbox someday. But Jonathan, this one was announced last summer, I believe, at a PlayStation State of Play. Nothing since then. Surely not coming this year. You think the KOTOR remake will be out 2023?
Yeah, this was a PlayStation Showcase announcement last year. This is from Asper, and they've been doing a lot of re-releases and ports of Star Wars games like Force Unleashed, the Jedi Outcast games, Republic Commando, et cetera, et cetera. So this seems like their most recent big, really focused in development projects. I would think we'll probably maybe start to see stuff either at the end of this year or early next year, but I do think it's one that there is such a love for KOTOR, and especially I think a lot of questions about where Star Wars video games fit in everything, that I think this is one that they're going to take as much time as they need to get right. I don't think you can really put out the KOTOR remake and have it be, well, that's okay. I think they really want to push for something that's as memorable for people as the original game was. And so, maybe the end of next year we could potentially look at, but I also wouldn't be surprised if this was a 2024 game, to be honest.
Ryan, the original KOTOR is one of my favorite games that I played on the original Xbox, probably right up there with the original Half-Life for me. Did you also play KOTOR on Xbox?
I reviewed it for official Xbox magazine because I'm old. But that is, like you, Dan, it's not just one of my favorite original Xbox games. It's probably it's like my 1A or 1B favorite RPG ever, along with Mass Effect 1, which coincidentally, they're both done by the exact same development team at BioWare. I adore this game. I love that it completely embraced the ability to just be a dark side Jedi, and the story went along with it. If you went down that road, it was just such a brilliant game. And so, yeah, it is weird as an Xbox player and somebody that reviewed it as, when it was an Xbox exclusive, that it's going to be a timed PlayStation exclusive. But I'm not going to I'm fortunate to have a PS5 back there. So I will be playing it day one on whatever console. And in this case, that means a PS5. But I will be very excited to see what this team does. I mean, with all due respect, this is a team that this development team doesn't have, Aspire is not known for making AAA blockbuster games. They're known as a port house.
Right.
So there's, I think, some reasonable skepticism there. But I also know that they've hired a lot of original KOTOR developers, ex-BioWare people. So hopefully, I don't really doubt the talent. I just hope that Aspire is able to, and maybe perhaps Sony is helping fund it as well. I just hope they have the full resources to make this the game, as Jonathan mentioned, the game that it really deserves to be.
Right.
It certainly seems like it's something that they are kind of putting their full focus into in that regard. But I agree with you. It is sort of a very much proving themselves moment for this team and seeing where they go from here. But hopefully they can live up to it. Certainly it seems like the Lucasfilm, partnerships we've been seeing are ones made on a promise of a certain quality level. So hopefully that proves to be the case here.
And I need to correct myself real quick. It was Half-Life 2 that I played on the original Xbox.
Yes.
But Ryan, jumping back to the Xbox side of things, we also have the Outer Worlds 2 coming up. And this was revealed last summer with just a trailer. I don't think we've seen any gameplay or gotten much out of it since then. But do we know that one is an Xbox exclusive?
I believe so. Yeah, I think that will, now that it's under Microsoft's wing, that will be an Xbox console exclusive. And that trailer was, even as you said, Damon, it didn't show any gameplay by design. I mean, the game's really early, but what a just fun trailer that was, where it just completely leaned into the meta of like, this is the part where we show, a fancy landscape. And that was a really fun trailer that they put together for it. And yeah, I am curious if it's going to kind of remain a like similarly scoped game as the first one, where it's
that's my question.
Yeah, it's not like Witcher sized or even Skyrim sized, I guess would be, or Fallout sized, to be kind of use a better parallel there. If it's going to be more of like a 20 to 40 hour game, I would be totally fine. I'm always going to be a quality over quantity person, and not that you can't have both. There are plenty of games that have shown that you can have both, but that part remains to be seen, because the first one was funded. It was Private Division published it. This is the 2K indie label, and this one's got the full backing of Microsoft now that Microsoft owns Obsidian. And so, does Microsoft say, scope up, take all the time you want. You guys have Grounded and you have Avowed, so we're not worried about getting stuff from you. Go ahead and make this 100-hour, mega game if you want, or if they will kind of keep it a little more, a little shorter in air quotes there by modern RPG standards. That's an interesting question that's yet to be answered.
I think a challenge they have at Xbox is to make sure that Starfield and Outer Worlds 2 are differentiated enough, because if Starfield is like the Elder Scrolls and Fallout formula in space, that's kind of what the original Outer Worlds was already.
Fair point.
So they definitely lean more into humor in Outer Worlds, but I don't know. They're kind of two very, very similar games under the same umbrella. Jonathan, would you include the Outer Worlds in one of those games that just offers you too much choice?
I wouldn't, no, because it's shorter. I actually played and loved the Outer Worlds, because that was a Fallout or a Skyrim I could see most of in 30 hours. And that's
true.
I tend to play a lot, like a variety of a lot of games, and skip around a lot. So a scope, a size of that, like, speaking to shorter RPGs, Ryan, I know there's some of your favorites, but the South Park RPGs, especially the original, being a short RPG that you could experience in that way. I love those. Not that I don't think it's, it's incredible that we do get these massive RPGs, especially for people who only play a couple games a year and want to really invest in those worlds. But for me, for skipping around, I loved the Outer Worlds and feeling like I could see so much of it. So I wouldn't mind if they kept it to a smaller scale, but also wouldn't blame them if they want to see what they could expand it to. I loved the tone of that world, though. So I think it is only set for PC and Xbox at this point, and I'll definitely be playing it day one.
Okay, there are a couple more upcoming next-gen sci-fi RPGs to mention, and they're both kind of related to each other and to some other games we've been talking about here. The first is the next Mass Effect, which we know is in development. This one I don't know how to feel quite about. I think the Legendary Edition of the original trilogy that was released last year was a good reminder of how great those original games were. But of course, then there was Mass Effect Andromeda, and BioWare had Anthem. And BioWare is just sort of seems to have kind of lost its way. Not quite the powerhouse developer that it was from the days of the original Mass Effect and KOTOR. Ryan, how are you feeling about just the prospect of another Mass Effect?
I am optimistic, and there's a couple reasons. One, I do think, to the points you just made, I think that BioWare has had a major wake-up call on every level. I mean, they've posted blogs in effect of that sort of speak to that. And for better and for worse, this is going to be made by a mostly brand new team. The people that worked on the original games have largely moved on, including Casey Hudson, who I know you're going to bring up here in a minute. But so that can be a good thing, though. I mean, if you have a new crop of developers that kind of, I don't want to say grew up in a kind of literal sense, but they played and loved the original Mass Effect games as we did when they came out. Also, they're switching to Unreal Engine, so they're moving off. They're they're going to avoid part of Andromeda's problem. A not insignificant part was the frostbite in the engine there and the trouble that caused during development, and you could see that on the screen when you played the game. And so, and the original Mass Effect trilogy, by the way, used Unreal. So not that that's like a guarantee of success, but we've seen from other developers that have cited the tools and the support that you can get for Unreal Engine being two big pluses. So I am optimistic. There's a long way to go, but I think the positive reception to Mass Effect Legendary Edition, as you cited, Damon, that I think has shown like that's the North Star for BioWare now, and for this new Mass Effect team is like people love this. We remastered it, and it turned out great, and people still love what this was. So let's stay focused and let's keep that in mind as we make this new one. So I am optimistic, even though I know we're not going to see this game for quite a while.
Sure. Jonathon, do you share Ryan's optimism?
I think so, to the extent, as Ryan mentioned, that I think there's sort of a wake-up call that, I think that phrase really rings true for the way that both they're taking approach to this and to the newest Dragon Age. It seems like they are giving them the time they need. They are listening to what the fan bases want. And this is something we've started to see a little bit of a trend with. I know they can obviously be very up and down when it comes to the fan bases, but we've seen that with EA in general, with both the Dead Space remake, where they're working with fans to get their feedback throughout development. They're showing behind the scenes stuff very early. Similarly with Skate, they're doing that as well with the reboot of that. And with these two games, I think they know what the BioWare name has meant. I think a lot of the developers there do as well, and I think they hope to kind of aim for that. I think the only reason to be tepid right now would be mostly because it's probably not going to come out for quite some time. I think that Mass Effect announcement was similar to the Starfield and Elder Scrolls announcements we got from Bethesda a few years back, was sort of to let people know this is coming, give an idea, get people excited, but it seems like something that is a bit of a way out. So hopefully they learn a lot through Dragon Age. Hopefully they've learned a lot from the past few years of things, but I'm hopeful because they've seen what the missteps can be, and I hope they can learn from that.
And the final game we're looking at today, or talking about today, is the aforementioned Casey Hudson. He has a new studio, Humanoid Studios, and they have revealed they're working on a AAA multi-platform sci-fi RPG, and they've released some concept art. And the art, I don't know if you've seen it, Ryan, it definitely gives me some Mass Effect-ish vibes. I don't know, like this is Casey Hudson, the person behind, who was largely behind KOTOR and the original Mass Effect, but also Anthem. So I don't know. How are you feeling about a new sci-fi RPG from Casey Hudson?
He left during Anthem, as I recall, and then came back because he was at Microsoft working on HoloLens for a while. So not to like completely derail this or absolve him of of any Anthem blame, but no, the guy's track record speaks for itself, as you just said, Damon. I mean, I just got done talking about how my two favorite role-playing games ever were both made by this person and the team he's worked with. And so, yeah, I mean, AAA sci-fi RPG from the director of Mass Effect and KOTOR 1. That word do I pre-order? I mean, that's really that's enough to definitely buy a lot of hype and credibility from me, and I be curious who's publishing it and how big the team is, and if there are other former BioWare people on the team with him, and what the release timeline looks like for that. So yeah, I'll be following this one very, very closely, but just right off the bat, very excited on that.
Jonathon, you're also ready to just open your wallet just knowing that Casey Hudson's making a new sci-fi RPG?
I mean, certainly the pedigree is there. I'm excited to see what the sort of different take will be. I think that's what's most interesting. We're seeing a lot of these big creator names leave foundational and really, prominent studios to go create their own smaller teams. Some then get absorbed back into the big machine like Jade Raymond's Haven Studios and PlayStation this week. But, I think seeing these really prominent names after all this time still be really excited by ideas that they've worked with for so long means hopefully there's something special there. So I definitely want to see more of it, but it's certainly a great starting point for a brand new IP like that.
Yeah, and sort of jumping off your first comment there, Jonathan, it'll be interesting to see how they can make something that stands apart from these other sci-fi RPGs that are coming. How does a new sci-fi RPG from Casey Hudson that isn't Mass Effect stand apart from the next Mass Effect that's also coming, and Starfield, and so on and so on. But definitely, I will be watching their work with great interest. Before we go, we have the results of last week's poll, and apparently you all discussed, let's see, what did you discuss? What unannounced exclusive are you looking forward to the most? The winning choice was Fallout 5 with over 30% of the vote. That's not too surprising. Down at the bottom was the Quake reboot, and maybe I need some context here. That seems a little random, Ryan. Is that something that's being talked about, a Quake reboot?
It's job listings have hinted at it. It's admittedly the probably flimsiest of those like confirmed, unconfirmed new games that we were talking about last week and put in that poll. Like Fallout 5 is going to happen. It's just a matter of, it's probably going to be in many years from now, not just after Starfield, but we already know that Todd Howard and the team are in pre-production on Elder Scrolls 6. That's their next game. So Fallout 5 would be after that. So whereas Quake were just kind of, there were the way that a job listing for id Software was worded a few months back as a lot of people suspecting that maybe they're going to do the Doom treatment on Quake. So I hope so, because that would be, if they made a single player reboot of Quake, I would be very much all over that.
Same, and I would also be all over the second winning result, which was Ghost of Tsushima 2. Yes, please, gimme. Here's a poll for you to vote on for next episode. We want to know which of the next-gen sci-fi games we discussed today are you looking forward to most? Starfield, the next Mass Effect, the KOTOR remake. Make sure to vote at IGN.com, and we'll share the results with you next episode. And that's going to do it for this edition of Next Gen Console Watch. Thank you to both Ryan and Jonathan. Thank you to Alan working behind the scenes to make this episode possible. We'll be back next Friday, 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern, with more Next Gen PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X news. We'll see you then.